Right, so welcome everybody. Again, today's session is on ARM Mobile, specifically kind of demonstrating the app as well as the process, kind of the interface from the ARM software to set up the application, then also to bring in the data. So we'll try to do the whole system here today, at least briefly. So I'm just going to recap real quickly ARM Mobile in case you weren't with us last week or need a refresher on the ARM Mobile application. It is our new app really for note taking. And you can use any iOS or Android device. So whether it's a mobile phone, an iPhone or an Android phone, or even an iPad, things like that can all use the ARM Mobile. And really the goal is to extend ARM to the field. You can take notes offline, but it is a connection to that trial file. Of course, then our consistency tools within ARM that makes it so powerful. Now we're able to bring that to all of your note takers and note-taking sessions. We'll see today how we can take plot photos and those image files get renamed and cataloged right with the trial when you're back in the office, and then reviewing data. Very important to do that at the point of assessment while you're still in the field. And that is a fantastic capability that ARM Mobile brings to the table. So this data flow, again, we covered in kind of our introduction webinar, but it's really what we're covering today. So I wanted to make sure just to step through it again, a little bit quicker pace. But really, the first component that we'll work with, it's in your ARM software already on your main computer, and that is what we call the base information. And that's essentially your favorites list, or we used to call them personal lists, that are related to data entry. So specifically your standard evaluation lists, the assessed by, which really becomes your ARM Mobile users, essentially, your crops and pests that you use most often, and the assessment list, the assessment header lists like your part rated measurement units, things like that. So we're going to copy all of that information from your ARM software on your computer and copy it out to a cloud storage service. Whether you're using Dropbox, OneDrive, or Google Drive, those are the ones that we can connect with. And that is done on your local computer. Have one of those systems running, and then ARM can just copy those lists and such into a cloud folder. Then your ARM Mobile app, when we first set that up, will download that information onto that device. So now we'll be able to use all of that functionality within the ARM Mobile app. The next step would be your individual trial files. And so what we end up doing with ARM Mobile is actually create a trial definition. So we're not sending the literal trial file, but kind of the most important pieces of it into its own entity, the trial definition. And that's going to be your SE definitions list in the trial, any assessment columns that don't have data, attachments, and some site details all get copied again into this separate file. We call it the trial definition, and that is put into that cloud folder, separate spot called trial def, which then also gets to pass on to the ARM Mobile app. And we'll download those trials onto the phone. And that downloading will kind of give us that offline capability, which I'll make sure to kind of highlight today, kind of at what point in the process do you need the internet, and what point are you now free to travel to the site. Oftentimes you might not have cell service, things like that. So we'll kind of show where that switches to. Then of course the ARM Mobile app will show today all the functionality that it has. When you're all done taking the data, taking pictures, reviewing, then we export that data to the cloud once internet access is available, of course. So that data will go into a separate folder in that whole cloud system that we've been setting up. And that is then free to flow back into the trial. On your main computer, ARM will automatically bring in that data when that file is opened up. So again, that's really what we're going to show today, that process here. So with that, I will switch over to my ARM. So I've got a few example trials that we'll work with. So step one of the process is our base information. And really that initial setup for the ARM mobile app is all done from the tools menu. We can connect electronic data collector, or EDC, kind of our acronym for this connection. And so our electronic data collector here, step one within this is to choose your direction. So we want to push or send out trials to our collector. Then step two is to choose, okay, which one are we preparing for? If you've used Mirus or the Excel rating shell before, you've seen those are on this dialog as well. They've been moved over in the last year or so. They aren't a part of this whole workflow with ARM Mobile. Those are free to use, totally separate from the licensing with the ARM Mobile. But they kind of fit in the same vein with they're both types of electronic data collectors, essentially. So they're on this dialog, but today we're going to focus on the ARM mobile app. That's the one I am going to demonstrate. I do want to just point out that there is a compatible app. So that is still going to refer to the same connection that we're using here with the ARM mobile, but there are some other, there's a possibility for some other software and other tools to also be used with this connection. So one example, if you're familiar with VDTS, they are a headset, they have a headset to be able to take data with only voice. So really a hands-free data collection. It has a camera and a little viewer that you put as glasses on your head, so you can kind of have a very small little picture to view, and then you manage the data collection with your voice. That's one example. We've just worked with that company to be able to use the same, base information and structure to the data, so that you can send your trial information to their system, take the data with their system, and then they can create the data in a format that ARM can then read and put back into the trial. Kind of the very same way we're going to see ARM Mobile do that. So right now, we're working with a handful of companies, both in the drone industry as well as data collection, hands-free companies. If you have one in mind that you work with and you're not quite sure if they're working with GDM, have them contact us. So we're really excited about this possibility. We've structured our system here to be open source, if you will. So there's not this magical proprietary, you can only use the ARM mobile app in order to leverage this. We want to make it very easy for another company's programmers to connect up to this flow, essentially. So that's our long-term goal, is to have all sorts of other companies be able to use this same system. And really our ARM mobile app, as we talked about last time with the pricing, the app itself is free. We really designed and created it not to make a bunch of money, but just to have something in the industry, and an option for this whole connection system that we set up. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. We wouldn't get very far if we said, hey, we've built this really cool connection. Now you got to go find a company who wants to build it, the other side. So that was really a reason we needed the mobile app. But you're free to use others, and hopefully as the future unfolds, there'll be a lot of options to be able to connect up with. And there is a question on the VDTS. I don't know offhand with the languages. I think I have their email address that I can drop in the chat so you could get a hold of them. They are based in Canada, but I'm not sure on different languages if they have support for that or not. So that'd be a great question for them. I'll make sure to get their contact information in there. So today we'll do the ARM mobile app, but just be thinking that really the app itself doesn't have to be the only possibility for this workflow here that we'll show. So the ARM mobile app is what we will select, and then our third step for setting this up is to locate that cloud storage service that you want to use. Again, we support a connection with Dropbox, a OneDrive, and Google Drive are the ones that we currently work with. And the key here on this side with your ARM on your computer is to have that installed. So right now I will be using Dropbox, and I am running the Dropbox program on this computer. And therefore I have a folder, kind of a dedicated folder on this computer that I can leverage. And that's really how ARM here, the ARM software will be able to communicate. So for today's session, I'm just going to pick this folder here that I will have ARM use. And once you pick a folder within that cloud storage folder, ARM will set up its own set of folders. So you won't have to go and start creating all these different folders and worry about managing them. ARM will create the kind of its own separate folder called ARM Mobile that can put these other folders and files inside. So that's what we'll get today, is all of these subfolders. And that's really what we talked about in the slides, our base information of all of those lists that we will be able to use in the app. And then a folder to be able to export data into. And then finally, when we export our trials, a spot for those definitions from the ARM trial out to the cloud is where those will be. So this initial setup kind of gets us connected to Dropbox. When I press next, and just to see that it did then start to create that folder for me. And then we're going to work on setting up this connection. And the first step is that base information. So just to visualize, we're going to copy all of these validation lists that are in my ARM here on this computer. And we're going to copy those to the cloud to be able to use on our phone. And so we've compiled this list. These are the ones that will be used. The first 4 are required. So there's really no way to utilize the ARM mobile app without having items in these lists. The rest of these here, there's a good chance you're going to want them, something like your crop list or your pest list. Things like that, you're probably going to want them, but in theory, depending on the research, you may not need one or more of them. So we didn't make them a strict requirement. You can see the status of if they're empty or how many items they are, and it's really easy just to view the list and edit. So in this case, if I want to add more people, in this case, the assessed by, I kind of alluded to earlier, is your list of users. So you want to put a real person name, but we will see in a little while when we get to the app where that will end up. So this is a nice process just to run through and make sure that your lists are kind of populated the way you will want them to. You can always come back here later and edit your mobile lists. So if you want to make an update and push that out to the cloud, you can do so. So I'm going to say that list looks good. I will update and close. So that was step one, the base information. Now the other component we want to send are the trials that we'll take data for. And thus we are presented with our study list to see all of the trials that we have. And I can choose which ones I want to export. And again, this will create a separate trial definition file and put that into Dropbox or your OneDrive. So you do not need to move or change the location of your files. However you have, however you're using your ARM trials right now gets to remain the same. And we're just having a separate connection with Dropbox. So it's not that you have to put all of your files into Dropbox now. This can be a totally separate system. So I'm going to send all 4 of those trials out there. And you can see it doesn't take terribly long, but it generates those trial definitions for each one and pushes them out to that cloud folder. And we can see a nice summary, 1 to 4 columns. This one didn't have any columns already defined. And we can see all green. So we show that there was no error while we were trying to generate that. And that's it. That is kind of the initial setup in the ARM side in order to populate that information that we'll need for the app. So I am going to toggle over here. I have my phone connected. I'm just using TeamViewer here to be able to kind of see it in action. And now we will show what you can do on the ARM mobile app. Fortunately, I can't use my mouse, so I'll try to point before I start tapping so you can kind of anticipate a little bit, but I'm going to open up Safari. So the ARM mobile app isn't something you'll find in the App Store. Instead, it is a web application. So you will just go to this URL, either in Safari if you're using the iOS, or if you have an Android device, then you'll use Chrome. And you would go to this web address. And when you go there that first time, it will load and download a little bit. So it acts like an application, although it is in a website form. It's kind of a cross between the two, essentially. So this first page is going to have us kind of set up, essentially install the app is what I like to think of it as. And so to start with, we choose our sync method. So you can see the options we have to connect to. And I'll choose Dropbox today. Subsample sequencing is just kind of the order of operations if you are taking subsamples. Whether you do all subsamples for one assessment and then perform the next assessment, or you're going to do all of the assessments for one subsample and then move to the next subsample. So just kind of your order of operations there, and then distance calculations, which system you prefer. And then I'll press next. Then we'll connect up to Dropbox. So the first step, import base information. The first time I click import, it's actually just going to prompt us to log into Dropbox or OneDrive. And I've already saved my login details, so I think perfect. All you have to do is press that bottom at the button to sign in, but you would sign into your account. And now that we're signed in, I will click the import button again. And this time we'll get to see our files within Dropbox. So let me navigate to Dropbox, and here I just want to find that folder I created, and there is ARM Mobile. So this first option was to find the base info folder. So I'm going to click the little box next to base info to say this is the folder where you'll find all those lists that we exported. So then I'll click on choose. And this will create a link. So here, oh, and it looks like I've kind of got something buffered. We'll see. We'll see if we have problems down the road here or not. It already exists, so I'm hoping that means it kind of already knows that. But that makes me a little bit nervous. Let's try the export location. Essentially, what we're doing behind the scenes is creating a kind of a sharing link. So that way on this device is able to find that folder in that account. So then the export location, I'll choose trial assessment. That will be the folder we want to put in our information. And let's cross our fingers. I'm thinking it's not working for me, yeah, because next is not working, of course. Things never work when they are supposed to. Let's see, I think I can reset my app. This is the one trick with trying to demo something is you do it once and it works great, and then to try to clean everything up so that way it's acting like it's totally fresh, of course, doesn't want to behave. So let me find my troubleshooting notes. I'll admit I'm not an iPhone user by trade. I'll use this for demonstrating, so I don't know where half of the options are compared to an Android device where I'm a little more used to it, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. So I'm supposed to go into settings. And this would not be something you would do by hand yourself, because I'm going to delete all the information related to this website, which would delete any data I have recorded and settings and things like that. And that would not be a good thing to do if you have any real data. In my case, I don't have anything other than example stuff. So let's just try this. I apologize for the delay. I'm supposed to be able to swipe this. There we go, and delete it. So that forgot everything, more or less uninstalling the application. And now I remember I'm supposed to close this tab first. So let's try this once more, GDM. Okay, well, it didn't load anything in there. So let's try this once more and cross our fingers that I haven't messed it up too bad. And you can see it's downloading here. So that was that step we had skipped previous. So you can see it takes just a little bit to kind of bring everything in. I will just repeat my steps real quickly so we can get through this. Log back into Dropbox and then cross our fingers once it loads that we're able to connect. Let me close my settings so it's not trying to compete with each other and see if I can get it to load. There we go. All right, so import base information. So I choose that base info folder. And we got success this time. I can breathe a sigh of relief. Then our export location again was the trial assessment. Perfect. All right, so that's kind of the initial installation. Hopefully we'll go smoother when you're doing it for the very first time on a device instead of trying to pretend that this was the first time. So here's that assessed by list. So again, this is kind of that last step for us in the setting up of the app. Say, okay, who am I? And so in my case, maybe we'll choose our user one since we added that to the list. And then we're ready to begin. So a nice, just a little introduction of what we're going to run through now. We'll press done. And now we're here on kind of the home page of the mobile app. Real big buttons you can see should hopefully be easy to navigate, and pretty much just gives us a to-do list basically of the flow of the mobile app. So the first step here in the app is to import trials. Now, this is something we're going to need to have internet access for. So a step previously, we downloaded that base information. Again, downloading needs internet. Same thing here, we're going to import and download those trial definitions. So that would be our trial def folder. And now I'm going to choose specific trials I want to bring in. So these are all of those trials we created. You'll see it has a different file extension. You don't have to worry about the extension itself, but just realize it's not a trial file. It's just that definition. So kind of a best practice, I think, would be if I've got internet, I might as well download them all and get them all onto my device. So that way, once I get out to the field, if we realize, oh, there's this other trial here at the site that I should take a note on, I'll have it on my phone so I'm not kind of stuck. So now I will select choose, and that will download those 4 trials onto my device. And this is kind of that magic point where you can now leave, go to the field, and if you don't have internet access, that's just fine. The ARM mobile app will work. You'll be able to do this step from here on out to be able to take data even if you're offline. So next step is to select trials. So, all right, we're here at the field now. We're ready to perform our assessments. So I need to select the trials that I'm going to work on. So whether you want to do just one at a time, and when you're all done with the process, move to the next trial, or we do have it structured so you can choose multiple trials at once and really schedule out the whole day if you'd wish. And so that's what I'm really going to show here. Let's choose 2 of them. I think I want to work on the fungicide first and then the seed variety. You'll notice though that they are not quite in the right order. The order that they're listed here will kind of determine the order I take notes on. So there is a button up here to sort, so I can change the order that these trials appear. So I can just drag and drop and say, all right, fungicide, I want you to be first, and then the seed variety second, and those other 2 we won't work on today. So just a simple kind of drag and drop to get them in the right order. Then I'll press back. Oh, let me try that once more. I don't know if I put that in there. I wanted fungicide first. And it is not doing that. Having all sorts of troubles today. All right, well, we'll just switch the order today. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. We'll say done. And now our assessment planner here gives us the list of trials that we're going to work on. So again, giving us that flexibility to have more than one scheduled out at once, or it's pretty simple just to work on one trial as well if we want. So we'll start with the seed variety. Our little menu button here to the right will show us the options for this trial. And the first one would be the assessment manager. So that's going to give us our list of assessment columns that we have defined. So here I had a half dozen of them in my trial that I already had filled in the header information about what I needed to perform, but we didn't have any data recorded for any of these assessments. And the little button on the right will expand this so you can see a little bit more information, kind of a longhand description of what this assessment may be. So I'm going to choose our crop height. This has subsamples. So I wanted to have an example with subsamples to show at the end. So we'll turn this one on for the crop height. And then let me go back. And just to show kind of some of our other options with the trials, if you have any attachments for a file, those are included here. So you could be able to view some attachments. In details, let me click on that. That will have just kind of the headline information, if you will, for the trial. Certain information here kind of from the header and your contacts, which is pretty handy. So if I needed to get a hold of the study director, I'd be able to pull up their number or the cooperator or whatever. I can get a hold of someone if I need to. Pests and crops and the treatment list will all be displayed, as well as any applications. This was our variety study, so there wasn't any of that. Let me go back here. The walking path would be your movement arrows in ARM of how you plan to move through the field. So you can set that so that way the app can match the flow you will have through the trial. You can pin the location to record the GPS of your device wherever you're standing, and that'll pin this trial and kind of match up to that trial. Or if you want to delete this definition out of the phone, that would be the remove. So I will close that, and then we'll work on the second trial. And I'll go to Assessment Manager. Okay, what assessments are we going to do with our fungicide trial? And so if you don't necessarily have your columns filled in, or maybe you get out there and there's a pest you didn't anticipate being out there, and you need to take a note on that, there is a plus sign at the top. So we can create an assessment column within the application. 3 ways to do that. You can use standard evaluations. So we'll show that in another webinar we have, kind of talking through learning how to use SEs and see the advantages of that. But if I click into that, it will show you your SEs that you've attached to this current trial if you use the SE definitions section. And then there is a tab for all, so you can have your full list of all the SEs you've used before are also available to you. And that'll create a new assessment column to be able to take notes for. If I press plus again, just to show, we can also copy a column. So if I've already taken an assessment last week, I can copy the header details and create a new column with those same information. And then finally, ad hoc would allow me to just start with a totally blank slate, and I could hand type my details while on this device, putting in whatever I need. Kind of the least automatic, probably most error prone one, but it gives you that flexibility. If there is something unexpected to take, you can at least get an empty column and take notes without feeling like you are stuck without being able to do that. So for this trial, I'm going to choose the disease index and the FIDO %. And then let me press the back button and close. And then we'll go back once more time. So you can see we've kind of crossed off a couple of items in our list now. We selected those trials and we actually selected our assessments as well. So now we're on to kind of this fourth step to enter our assessments. And here I'm going to cheat since I couldn't get the trials to order right. This little icon here to magnifying glass will let me skip through the different plots I was going to cover. Oh, and then they're kind of mixed up. That's why. Let me go to the fungicide. So in the fungicide trial, we had selected 2 different assessments, and so you can see them both here. And my first one was a 1 to 4 index, and so it gives me just buttons to click on for that type of assessment. That's the rating unit. Minimum and maximum is how you can create that when you're setting up your columns. So I can just click on a button to enter in that rating. My second assessment is a more freehand. So I just need to click into that, and whatever rating it is, maybe it's 25% here. And now when I press the return button, it's going to move us to the next plot. So now we are on plot 102 and ready to take this assessment. So if I'm kind of eyeballing the field and going, you know, most of these are a 1. There is a default value. So this little green circle to the right, if I click on that, then it will set this 1 that I've entered as the default value for subsequent ratings. So I will confirm that. I could do the same thing for my phyto if I'd like. Oops. And then press that button and confirm. So this will put a 1 and the 10 as my default values. Now when I move to the next plot, I could have either hit enter a second ago, or this arrow button up here will move us to the next plot. Oh, let me return to walkthrough. I must fat fingered that one here. Nope, I do not know what's going on here, because we should just be on to 103. When we move to the next plot, here we're at 103 now. The button, the value we filled in is in gray. So there's that 1 that's in gray and our 10 in gray. Those are our default values. So if I move to the next plot and say, yeah, that's exactly like the last one, so I have those same values, I just have to press this green double arrow to accept those defaults as the true assessment. So when I do that, there's just a little tip that I can make go away so we don't have to see that each and every time. It's going to move to the next plot, and it's going to put 1 and 10 as our assessment values. And I'm not sure, my ordering of the trials has got this very confused. So I'm going to keep using this navigation here to move to plot 104. So maybe in this case, I don't want to use the default value. We'll maybe enter something else. You have that functionality to put in whatever you need. Maybe this is a 4, but the phyto is still the same. I can use the green arrow button, and only the 10 will stay the same, and that 4 value will be saved for that plot. Yeah, it's just going to keep thinking that I'm all done with my assessments. So let me go to the next plot, 105. A couple more options here in the data entry flow. This arrow over here to the left, that shows us a few more options for each assessment. You can exclude your value. So if it's a damaged plot, right off the bat, you know you won't be able to use that value. You can turn that on to exclude that value from the analysis. That'll mark it as damaged when we get back into ARM. There's also a comment. So just a free text comment to put whatever information that you have. Oops, I'm typing, but I didn't click in there. And then there's also a picture. So this will open up my camera. I've got a pretend field here, just print it out so we don't take a picture of my desk. But you can line up your shot then and take the picture. Kind of gives you a chance to confirm in case it's blurry or you didn't quite get the shot you want. And I will use photo. So then that will attach that photo to our plot once we get back into ARM. And then I can just shrink that back up if I'd like. On the right hand here, there's 3 dots. That's our option to do an assessment review. So this, once you get done with all of the plots, at this trial, then we can do an assessment review. And this will draw our trial map with the lowest assessment value as white, the highest assessment value as this dark red, and then give a gradient in between. We didn't make it all the way through our field, so there's not a lot of excitement here, but we can zoom in to this map. And if we click on like 101 here, we can see more information. The assessment value itself was 3, and it also draws just the treatment 3s across the map. So you can see its consistency from rep to rep. And then if I just click on 102, that'll again show all the treatment 1s and so on and so forth. And I can always zoom out again. This was for our first assessment, so I can move over and view this second assessment as well. It's similarly unexciting, but it's a great way to view your assessment. There might be a value that really stands out, that's way too large or way too small, a good way to catch an outlier. Maybe there's some spatial pattern that has appeared that you really didn't anticipate or notice as you're going through the field. You know, this visualization is really powerful to catch those things. And the key part of reviewing the assessment is you're doing it now at the trial site. So if there is something strange with this plot 101, because it's so much larger than the rest of them, then you're still at the site. You can walk back over to plot 101 and investigate. Did I just type in the wrong value? Is there something strange that happened? Should we take some picture, write some more notes? Because it was kind of an unusual circumstance. You know, if you're just typing in values from paper into your computer the next rainy day, or even in the hotel room and later in the evening, it's too late to do anything else about something like that. So bringing that assessment review to the field is really important. All right, let me press the back button here. We won't go through filling in all of the assessments, but I think we covered most of these tools. This arrow, it's kind of the location arrow button, if you will, that will pin your location for this particular assessment plot. So if you want to record the GPS value where you're standing with your device, you can make note of that just by pressing that button. We've had to use this magnifying glass already, but that was the list of plots that we selected. So that's an easy way to zoom across different plots. So here in my case, I'll use that to go to the very last one. And maybe for the heck of it, I'll fill in an assessment. This one I want to be 25. When we're on the last assessment, you'll notice there is no next plot. I'm all finished. Then when we move to the next one, it will give us the assessment summary, which we had an early preview for. But here it says the assessment entry is complete. Now we can fill in essentially the header details for the rating. So in my case, I haven't picked a pest or a crop in my assessment column. Maybe with the fungicide, we were waiting until the disease was present to get the right one. I don't know. So here, sorry, I'm going a step ahead. I didn't show with my mouse. The 3 little buttons on the right will allow us to select from our list to select a pest. I'm just going to click one. Once you have a pest or a crop defined, now you can record pest stage, density, diameter, whatever you would want to record as part of this assessment. So maybe I'll do the density. Once you choose a unit, and again, these are all being populated from my base info, my personal lists from my ARM software. So in square meters, now I have the values, the majority min-max values to fill in. So we'll just make up values. Has to be, I can't, there's some logical checks to make sure if that's the minimum. If it's the maximum, it can't be smaller than the minimum, things like that. Then I can go to the next assessment and basically do the same thing again. So for our Fido, I did have a crop already defined. So you can see now I could fill in whatever details about the crop. I'll skip that for now and say done. Now that we're finished with our assessment, we have one last review option, the completion dashboard. So here, this will show all of the trials where we've taken data on. And so if I click on the fungicide here, we can see the 2 assessments we performed. And it tells us we've completed 5 out of the 20. So we didn't complete the entire assessment. It gives us the experimental average across the whole trial, and also a split out for your control, any untreated treatments that you've specified. So that's the average of our untreateds. If you had a standard product, kind of the same thing there. And then we repeat for that phyto. So we only did 5 out of the 20. And we can see those averages. So in my case, that's all I'm going to do. Of course, it would be a great point to realize, oh, I missed one of them. You know, which one did I not take? This button up here will take you back to that data entry flow, and you would be able to then go to the right plot and fill in the missing assessment. But now I'm just going to press back. And so then the final step is export assessments. So now this would be a step we need to do when we have internet access. So we would be able to, if we're still in the field and don't have internet access, we could just go to the home page, put the phone or the device in our pocket or in the truck, and be done. All of the data is saved within the app on the phone, and it's not going anywhere. Once we have internet access again, whether it's cell service or we're back in the office and connected to Wi-Fi, then we can perform the export. This is just a reminder, if you take a lot of images, that is a larger files that get sent across. Data is very, very cheap, if you will. It's very small. If it's just recording values, those go in instantly, but of course a picture is just so much larger. So that's just a heads up. If you have taken a lot of pictures, it might take some time, and Wi-Fi would be a lot better performance in most cases. So here we would see the list of all of the assessments that all of the ratings have been entered for. Of course, we're cheating today, so we will find in the partially complete our list of assessments. So we've kind of segregated them just in case. And we can see those 2 that we have performed. I'm going to select both of them and press export. So this is going to send the data that we've taken for these 2 assessments out to Dropbox. And we took just 1 picture, so that first one will probably take just a little bit. That second assessment probably only took a heartbeat, and now we're all done. We were successful, so if I press back, now we're finished with that export. And in our case, if we were moving on to that next trial, I could go back and enter assessments or select other trials or what have you. But to keep this moving, I'll switch back over now. We kind of put the phone down and back in the office on our ARM machine. The nice thing is it's pretty much instant. Dropbox, at least in my experience, been very quick to sync. And so by the time I return here, we've probably already had those files that have been exported synced onto my local device. so that just when I open up this trial, I don't even have to do any special importing. ARM will automatically detect that that data was present in our Dropbox folder. And here it imported both of those data columns right from our Dropbox folder. So if we go to the assessment data, we will see columns 1 and 2, they were already predefined, and ARM just put the data then right into those assessments. And that's all of our data. We can see that little red triangle here means there's more information. So this was the plot where we had our comment came across and also our assessment image. And so this image was sent across. It's now in the same folder that my ARM trial file is at. And it's been renamed for the trial ID, plot number, treatment number, assessment date. If you've ever done that, attaching images or used TDCX, it's that same workflow of renaming the image file. Yeah, actually, I probably have that folder right here if I could show that off my screen. Here we go. Oops. So this is where my trial is saved at. Again, it doesn't have to be in Dropbox, it could be anywhere, but that is that image that is attached to that plot, and it's been renamed and put in that same folder. And if you do take notes with a lot of trials, you can also use the tools Connect EDC and perform a pull. And then that will give us the study list, and you could select whichever trials you know have been worked on, and that will try to fetch all of the data, from all of the trials kind of in a batch process instead, if you'd like. So that was a pretty quick and dirty look with a few hiccups along the way. Any questions? I do have that example with the subsamples, but I want to leave some time for questions. There is one about the images. A copy of the images stay on the mobile device. So if I go back to my mobile device, we do have I'll call it a backup system, essentially. So even though we've exported those assessments, so now if I were to look in like my completion dashboard, there's no assessments here. Once you've exported them, they disappear from the I'll call it the front page of the app, so that you wouldn't accidentally export them again. You wouldn't accidentally take data over the top of them again, things like that. But there is a backup still saved on the device. So if something went wrong with the export, or it's supposed to be imported in an ARM and something doesn't work right, give us a call and we can step through. There's a backup both on the app itself within the settings, so we can trigger another export of that same data, which would include the picture. Or if it's kind of on ARM side, there's also some troubleshooting we can do to trigger that import again. So we've got some backups on both sides of the fence, because that would be absolutely kind of the death sentence for ARM Mobile if we didn't have a way to recover if something went wrong in that initial exchange of data. So both sides of the fence, we've got backup files for recovering with that. And taking more than one photo for the same plot, I would have to test that. Let me click in my settings to see if we have it. I didn't see an option for that. I know within ARM proper, the ARM software, we can have more than one image attached, but I can't say I've specifically tried taking more than one photo for an assessment. I think the best case for that perhaps would be when you're like selecting your assessments. And let me just pick that fungicide 1 assessment manager. Maybe just add a column that would be your image. I think I even tried that. Oops. I think I did that once. I'm not sure if that's in my list here. No. Tried to set up an SE to kind of show that you could even just have an assessment column literally just for pictures if you wanted. And that might be a way to support more than one photo for the same plot. It would just be separate data columns essentially with those images. So that would maybe be one way to make that work. There was a question earlier with OneDrive requiring permission from an admin. So we have seen some of that in our beta testers where OneDrive can be a bit of a stickler. So way back when you're connecting to OneDrive instead of Dropbox, just depending on the security settings of your company and their OneDrive, it might be harder to connect. And I think I'd have some notes that I could pull up from one of our beta testers that tried to get that to work. But I do know that at least one group said, boy, this was just a pain. And then we'd have to repeat it for any user, any person who wanted to use ARM Mobile. So they, instead of using OneDrive, we suggested just create like a free Dropbox account, just kind of a dummy Dropbox account specifically only for these ARM Mobile folders. So they continue to use OneDrive for their ARM files and then just created this little Dropbox account because it didn't have as many hurdles with that admin and settings and stuff. And that worked well for that group. So that would just be another option, is kind of pivot away from that OneDrive. Again, I think since it's ingrained in Windows, then it's convenient, but then it also comes into the company security and protocols, and sometimes that's a lot to take on at once. So. Well, I've taken up my hour. I do want to encourage anyone that's interested in ARM Mobile. We do have a demonstration for you to get your hands on if you'd like. The same trials that I showed today, we have, well, you saw it here in Dropbox. I can actually just share a folder just like that. I just copy that folder and name it with your company and share it with you. And that can be a demonstration of the app if you'd like to just try it out with our example files here. Then you can pull up your own device and just poke around with it. Just shoot us an email if you're interested in that. It takes 5 minutes to set up. Then you can tinker and play around with it a little bit and just get a feel for if it would be a good fit. And as I mentioned at the beginning, being a brand new app, we're learning along with everyone else, and it's a lot of just conversations with people on, okay, what do you do for note taking? And then we kind of pair that with, oh, this ARM Mobile, that might be good, or have you considered this instead? Or just kind of learning what people do and trying to match that with the data collection options that we have. So. With that, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions on ARM Mobile, and hopefully we'll maybe be seeing you again at a future webinar as well. So thanks, everybody.